Hi, my name's Matt from the Loom of Time.
And I'm Shieldsy from Evocatus.
Welcome to the Tomb of Lime podcast. I forget what episode we're up to. I have no idea, It's been a while since we actually recorded this. Anyway, this episode is about, it's the culmination of, it's like an experiment years in the making, okay? And Shieldsy has no idea what we're going to be doing, but I guess he's going to find out. I want to start off by saying, yes, the episodes that we've done so far, thanks everyone for, watching and listening. Those ones that were recorded actually quite a long time ago, back when we thought we were releasing this album, and it ended up not being that way. Thanks for putting up with some of the learning process I went through in the kind of editing and color and sound and all that sort of stuff. But we're here now in a new day, new year.
Yeah, me learning how to speak, me learning how to converse.
Yes. Yeah.
During that season. I'm sure as the season progresses, you can see the little improvements that I get each time.
I think even after that first episode, reviewing it, since we've been putting it back up, just that first episode after that, I think I noticed a drastic improvement.
Rather than me just saying, oh, yep.
So, we're at the point now where we're very close to releasing a new album. Have you heard it?
I have not.
You haven't heard it? Okay. How is that possible? If you do some vocals on the record, how is it possible that you haven't heard it?
The album has been held very closely to your chest. Of course, I've heard tiny snippets were shared with me because that was necessary.
Yeah.
Other than that, no.
Yeah. So I put together just so you were doing backing vocals and choirs and things like that.
Yep.
And so I put together just the pieces that you needed.
That's all I needed.
Yeah, it was the same with all the other guest musicians as well. Like Ryan Huthnitz of Emissary and the Seer fame and so on. I just gave him the snippet he was supposed to be playing his guitar solo over, and he even he asked me. He's like, oh, "Could I hear the rest of the song?" So I get an idea of what to play. And
no.
I said no. But it was I was nice about it. I was basically like, I don't want the rest of the song to influence how you feel about it. Yep. I prefer the anarchy of just letting you go wild in there and seeing how it goes. But the reason I have held it close to my chest is not just because I'm a sort of control freak egomaniac. I might be a control freak egomaniac, right? It could be, but that's not the reason. It's not that I'm trying to, stop spoilers from leaking to the rabid fan base or anything like that.
It would have happened.
One of the reasons that I wanted to do it this way, to keep it kind of hush-hush, and, well, there's a couple of reasons, I suppose. One would be, I think the demo, era of it, the unpolished era of it is never going to be... if you listen to it at that stage of it, you might start forming opinions about the music, that color. Your brain, even subconsciously, might make a judgment about what this song is like. I do or don't like this song, whatever, before you hear the final thing. And even when you hear the final thing, even if it's better, that kind of might still color your opinion of it.
You mean as a casual listener,
sure.
Not as a contributor or the main artist such as yourself.
Well,
putting it together.
I think as the main artist putting it together myself, I hear how it is, and I know what potential it has because I've got ideas that I want to come out in the production process that haven't gotten there yet.
Yep.
So I have the faith that it'll come out. But someone who isn't part of that creative process doesn't really know.
No, they're only making their mind up on what they've got in front of them.
That's all they can do. Yes.
And you think, just you wait, it's going to be massive. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. And it's like, I mean, I can see that, but...
yes, it could be, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, has there ever been a time when you've been described something by someone and then gone and consumed that media or whatever, and it's been significantly different enough that you've been like...
Sure, yeah.
And, with those sort of wrong expectations in place, do you think that negatively affected how you absorbed that thing? Like,
either way, like,
yeah,
but both ways. Sometimes, people say like, don't bother checking out blah, blah, blah because it's garbage or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you listen to it and like, or watch it or whatever the thing is, and it's amazing or, and vice versa. Like the same as you, with our music, Evocatus, we dick around in a lot of demos all the time and they're rubbish. The magic happens like in that real infancy of that music, happens when you get to jam it together as a band and it comes together in the studio with everyone playing it at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know that's probably not something that you get to experience the same as we do, what with not having a, readily available access to musicians all the time.
No, easy drummer and...
Yeah, you're just in here in your room, knocking it up yourself.
Yeah.
Until you've got to go and record it in the studio, We get a fair old crack at refining the songs from their earliest conception, really organically together.
I have to say, like, the first time that I got together with some live musicians on the drums to actually play the song, I was like, almost brought a tear to my eye. Like, it was like, wow, it sounds real now.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible feeling.
Yeah.
Even a couple of the songs that we're working on now, 2 of them are ready for the stage, Yeah. And it's amazing how they are right now in their current form. And I know in demo form what the potential is from the previous record when we had all these demos that we learned and we played the songs live for a couple of years, even before they were released on a record. And then when we handed it all over to Ryan, who put it together for us, and the finished product was just, yeah, it's a pretty significant thing to look forward to. And to your point, taking that stuff, and keeping it close to your chest because it's like, it's not ready yet. It's not ready for the world yet. Like, avert your eyes,
Yeah.
Trust me, it'll be ready when it's ready.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and I respect that. I haven't, I don't think that I pestered you for it or anything like that,
no.
even though I really, really want to.
Okay. No, but there was another reason that I wanted to do it this way as well, of course. And that was people like you. I sort of respect your opinion and you're close enough to the project, but not like intimate with the project to be able to give me sort of, I suppose, a certain insight and feedback on it, as long as you're getting it at the right time, I suppose, not too early.
When it's too late for my, like, maybe you should do this. Or
oh well, yes, it is too late for that.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's way too late for that.
Well, it's not. I guess. Okay. Here's the thing. All right. So it's not less about in this case about. Oh, this could be better, or should have done this, or oh wow, that sucks. It's more about me setting up expectations for you, and how you end up responding to those expectations when you actually hear the final product. All right. So what I want to do is I actually want to tell you about the new album, describe it to you in words, and then you're going to put them in your brain. Okay. And then you're going to listen to the album and then you're going to go, all right, I understood what Matt said. And then once you've listened to it, you can come back to me with feedback about whether I gave you correct expectations for the album.
Is that what we're doing tonight?
That's what we're doing tonight.
Oh, wow. Can I take notes?
You can take notes if you want to, but maybe, no. Just experience.
We are taking notes. It's all recorded.
Yeah. But yes, but I can go in and delete it if I want to. Ha, Shieldsy.
Yeah, I never told you that.
I win. So yeah, okay. So right.
Cool.
So yes, this episode is about expectations or something along those lines, all right?
Yep.
So let me tell you about this new album that we've got. All right, it's called Grand False Caress. Caress is not a real word. You'll have to Google that later. Don't worry about it now. That's fine. I was going to bring up the album art for you, but I'll do it later. Right.
Grand False Caress.
Grand First word. Second word, false.
False.
Yes. Karass. Karass.
Karass.
Right. Nihilreich. This is an album that you're familiar with. And you know what the project was. You know what our aim was, because we went through all those episodes of that podcast doing it.
Yep.
And you know what I was trying to do, and what we maybe sometimes succeeded and sometimes didn't succeed in doing, and so on and so on and so on. So let me describe what I think is different going forwards. Tell you what, you pour us a drink.
All right.
And yeah, I'll tell you a story about the Grand False Karass. So, one, I didn't start even writing this album until after Nihilreich was released. I know a lot of artists, have potentially multiple albums on the back burner. While they're touring, they're writing, and while they're writing, they're writing, and while they're recording, they're writing. And so they've got things in the bank ready to go. And this wasn't the case for me, because I wasn't sure if this was worthwhile pursuing. I thought maybe if Nihilreich just bombed, I'd be like, well, I'll just do it in my bedroom and not worry about it. So when it released and people were like, oh, no, that's not, I'd listen to that. I'd go, okay, maybe I can write a second album. But this time, I didn't want to be... All the things that I had in my brain that were kind of telling me what kind of music I should write... almost limitations, how the scene was around that I was, thought was around, and whether I had this many musicians to play with, this level of talent to work with, and so on. All those practical concerns about, how to write the music were now lifted, because I knew who I had to work with. I knew how many musicians. I knew what the scene was like. I knew what people were receptive to.
Right.
So I would say Grand False Karass is kind of like Loom of Time, but with creativity unleashed somewhat. All right?
Take some of those constraints away.
Yes. So, okay, how do I describe this to you? To set up the correct expectations so that you enjoy it. Like, have you ever listened to an album and not liked it the first time, but then come back for a second round and gone like, oh, I get it now? And sometimes it's because your expectations about what are in there,
I had an expectation about a certain, or new records, and you have an expectation built around that same band's previous record, and then you listen to it's like the classic fan paradox, where like people get angry that their new music's different to their old music, or then they get angry because the new music is the same as their old music.
Yeah.
And you can't win.
And the problem on this end of it is it's really hard to be objective about your own material. So it can feel the same writing it as some previous effort, and then people will go, wow, it's so different. I'm like, is it? It comes from the same place.
Yeah. Or the opposite, where you've definitely gone down a different path and it's come out sounding, that's definitely Loom of Time, or that's definitely Matt.
All right, maybe I'll start with some more on the similarities there. Okay. I think the kind of thrust of the writing style, the song structures being linear and non-repeating, that's all there. Yep. I think the kind of more or less down to face, in your face, kind of down to, did I say down to earth or down to face?
Down to face, you said.
I know
what you meant.
Down to earth, in your face, down to face, in your earth attitude to the delivery is still there. It hasn't become suddenly an atmospheric black metal band or anything like that. And it's still not, I think the lyrics, because the lyrics are still on the same level of not really personal stuff, just angry versions of thought experiments.
World
and so
loathing.
Yeah. That all of that kind of attitude has come across kind of the same. But I think when it comes to song structure, it doesn't feel like just a pile of riffs anymore. I think it flows more like it's music right?
Okay.
It's not just a salad anymore.
Yep.
Which I listened to Nihil Reich again today because the internet died at work, and it's the only music I have sitting on the computer there. So, so I had a moment to reflect, and
Good timing.
and I felt like it definitely is a bit of a riff salad. But so this album, I'd say there are riffs in it, right? But it's less riff centric. It feels more like music. It feels less like, oh, here's a riff section.
Here's a riff, and then there's another riff, and then there's another riff.
It's more like section A, section B. It's got a flow.
It's a song.
Yes, I think it flows a lot better. I think it's a lot more musical. I think it's a lot more varied and creative. So it's just got more variety to the style. Like, the genres I think we explored on Nihil Reich, they're all present, okay?
Yep.
But I think we go deeper, right? So you'll be like, that's like, you know, black metal has lots of different ways of doing riffs, and you know, and some of that, you know, just isn't on Nihil Reich. Doom metal has certain ways of doing things. Anyway, you'll hear some stuff, and you'll be like, oh, that's a deeper cut from the genre of thrash there.
Yep.
That's a deeper cut from the black metal there. That's somewhere they never went on.
So whatever elements that you had before, you've got those same elements, but they're more amplitude.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a way of thinking about it. Or it's like there's just certain styles of things that exist at a certain level of black metal, and you have to go into, you know, more obscure black metal to get the deeper stuff. Or you know, I don't know. I think it'll make sense when you hear it.
Okay.
But yeah, I've also really tried to have each song feel much more unique as an entity of itself. So you can go, oh, that's that song, and I think you'll be able to go, oh wow, this is the thrash song, or this is the doom song, or this is the black metal song, whatever. A lot more sections of it feel more like, rather than here's a riff and here's a guitar solo, it feels more like, wow, here's an instrumental section. You know, it doesn't quite make sense in this chopped up fashion. And I think that's just because maybe I tried a little harder to get it to flow. So on the variety front, I think the genre of variety, just because we go further into those genres, it will feel more varied that way. But there's also more variety in the instrumentation. We've got a lot more accessory stuff sitting on top of the music.
Yep.
It's subtle. I didn't want it to be the focus. I still wanted it to be basically like you do it live, but with a lot of color in it, so that you can, for when you're sitting at home, when you're listening to it, you've got that extra interest there.
Sprinkled some spice on it.
Yes. I think there's spicy stuff everywhere. Part of that is just instrument choice. Part of that is going to be guest people.
Yeah.
I think there's at least one guest on every song that basically doesn't appear on any other song. So
oh, wow.
That's
a lot of guests.
Yeah.
Wow, how many songs are we talking?
9?
9 songs.
9.
Are they 9 songs, or is there 9 tracks and then 3 of them are just...
It's 8 songs and 1 ballad.
Well, a ballad's still a song.
It is, but when
I mean, like, it's just not a minute and a half of whale noises, you know? It's a song.
Yeah, I mean, look, all of our whale viewers, please don't be offended. Your music's cool too. But you know, try a blast beat every now and again. But no. So 9 actual songs, all right. But cool. Yes, it still follows the format of a bunch of Loom songs and then a ballad.
Right. Okay.
I still went in with that idea of I need to put at least one thing in each song that's different from the rest.
Yep.
But I think because of all the kind of things that we did, it sort of compounded, and some of them... Well, I'll let you into a secret here. I got, I think, 7 songs in, and I gone, track 8, I need to write a normal song. I need to write a normal Loom song for track 8.
Yeah, right.
So
there are
a
couple of songs that during your live playing, you played some songs that are not on Nihil Reich.
Yeah. We've played 2 tracks that haven't been on Nihil Reich.
Yep. So do they appear on the record?
So yes, one of them was an embryonic form of the song, and it has since changed significantly.
Yeah, of course.
The one that was written for Nihil Reich It's called The Shoulders of Giants. That didn't get on there because, one, I wasn't sure that we'd have time to do it all. And I was correct. And two, I didn't feel it was ready. But now it's ready.
Now it's ready and it's different.
Yes.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. I feel like we've got a song the same as that now too. Not that it was cut from the previous record, but like it's a brand new song. We've played it live a bunch of times. We knock it round, with a demo. But I'd like to think by the time it's finished and it goes through its paces in, post-production, it will be magical.
That's the hope. That's the goal. Yeah. Let me think. If I set up all the expectations that I need to set up with you here.
So we've got the similar genre channels, but deeper.
Yeah.
Each song is unique from the rest. I have an expectation in that, like, I think I know some of the songs as well. There are no whale noises. And
no promises on the whale noises, but there's no entire
not
songs
an entire
of
song of whale noises. And the songs that I do know
you've heard once, I think.
Yeah, different from what I have seen.
I think the creativity thing is something that we can sort of really get on.
That's right.
Here.
Yeah, you took away some of the rules.
Yes, and so I think you'll hear that. I think you'll hear us go to places. I think it's also kind of more fun in a lot of ways. I think you'll hear stuff and you'll go, you got an air horn in there, like something like that. There's certain bands that I think for the casual listener probably sound like everyone else from that genre, but for someone who's really familiar with the genre, you know where they buck the trends of the genre.
Sure.
Right? So I think on this album we actually deliberately play into some, tropes and then twist them and switch them around. So you'll feel like something's going a certain way, and then we'll flip it on its head or whatever.
Yeah.
And it seems like maybe that's the kind of thing that would only be rewarding for someone who actually, is in it.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully maybe once per song you'll be like, there'll be something, and you'll be like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? That's illegal.
Yeah. That's illegal.
Or something.
Well, I'll have to, and I will, but really pay attention.
Yeah. Okay.
With these notes that we're taking.
So yeah, what I guess the experiment that we've set up here is that you've been kept away from this project, but I know your tastes
for years.
Yeah, and I know what kind of music you listen to and what we've talked about in the past about my previous music. I've given you a certain set of expectations, right? You're going to listen to the album with those expectations in mind, and then after we've finished listening, you're going to tell them whether I was right about what I said or whether I'm too close to the project and my objectivity is wrong. So
okay,
yeah. So you'll be able to give me feedback, I guess, in whether the things I've said actually reflect the music that you hear.
Yep, I get it.
That way, when I go to write a blurb for the album that I can put online or whatever, I'm not totally off base. Loom of Time, but now actually brutal or something, and then everyone listens to it like, this is the least brutal thing I've ever heard. I could be way off base.
Okay.
So yeah, I've said those things. You've heard those things.
Yep.
You've internalized them.
Yep.
You got 45 minutes or so to spare.
Really pay attention and then really take notes, remembering this conversation, and then mark you out of 10.
Something like that.
Yep.
All right. All right. So for us, this is going to be probably a longer podcast episode, but for you guys, it might end up shorter because you're not going to hear it right now. You're going to hear it when you hear it. But we're going to zip forward 45 minutes in about 5 seconds. But for us, that's some listening time. Are you comfy? Are you ready to sit down and just chill and listen? Is that good?
Are we doing this now?
Yes.
Oh my God. All right then.
All right.
Let's do it.
See you in a few. All right. Now I know this puts a lot of pressure on you to, just to spring this on you, and but what I want to say here now is I want to hear from you now whether you think it was good or not, right? Because if you say it was good, it's just like you could be lying, And if you say it's bad, you could be like, well, you could break my heart, just destroy my self-esteem, right? So we're not going to talk about that. You probably have to time to form an opinion and blah 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 blah. But what I do want to talk about, I suppose, is how would you describe what you just heard, and if you could compare it to Nihilreich to someone who hasn't heard it, just this first interaction. What do you have any words? All right, let's recap some of the stuff that I said that I thought it had in it that would be different.
You said, heck the rules.
Yeah, so, yeah. Oh, yeah, we had some technical difficulties in that first song because I hecked the rules a little too hard.
You hecked the rules so hard that I thought, like, oh, man, I'm having hardware issues here. And you were like, sussing it out, and you went, oh, no, I know what's wrong here. I hecked the rules.
Here's the thing. I actually specifically said to Mitta for that section, I want people to think that their stereo is broken. I want people to think that, like, they've just spent 2 minutes underwater before, everything comes back. We can discuss the minutiae of the things that went on there.
So that happened.
Yeah, so that was one thing that I didn't give you expectations for. One of the things that I wanted to do with this album was I wanted to kind of muck with the medium of sound as the album in the way that it actually works and transmits into our ears, right? Mm-hmm. So that can involve doing weird stuff with sound that is nothing to do with the notes you've written and the instruments you're playing. And
it wouldn't have mattered what was playing. I would have had the same reaction.
Yes, yeah. So, again, we can talk about this stuff later, but it's like, I feel like music, surely there's some stuff about music that is unique to the medium of music.
Sure.
How can I do something to mess with the medium of music?
Yeah.
To get a reaction. So yes. So
that was one. You explained in the last season, we'll call it, that you had some rules, and you explained tonight that for this record, heck the rules, they're not important anymore.
Again, a lot of the rules that I had set for myself before, they weren't important anymore.
They didn't matter anymore.
Them anymore.
No,
yeah.
That's right. So you definitely hecked those rules. So in terms of being able to play it live, like keep the music in a way that you can just take it to the stage and it's written around one guitar and blah, blah, blah. There is so much going on in there.
Yes, I definitely, I'm Nihilreich, I wrote for one guitar and then went back over it for two guitars.
Yeah.
So it was one guitar plus some extra stuff, whereas this one was from the ground up written with two totally different guitars in mind, right? So
two totally different guitars and every other musician you can think of in a 200-kilometer radius. Well, like, let's bring them in.
So there was a lot of times where like I can use the second guitar to you can write a lead part that helps you transition between sections, for example. So I felt that might help things flow better in certain sections, that you couldn't have access to.
That was the next expectation that you gave me, I guess, in terms of song structure, where if we were to compare it to Nihilreich, and we will keep comparing it to Nihilreich because short of the other explanations that you've given me tonight, that's my only other preconception.
Sure.
This is what I know about Loom of Time.
Yep.
I'm going to listen to Loom of Time again, and there is a preconception. Nihilreich was a collection of riffs played one after the other that you bashed together in a sense.
Yes. It was very riff-centric, yes.
Yeah. Now, this record, the outset was, I'm going to make sections of songs that sort of flow better, and it's a more of a holistic song approach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was my intention from the outset. I think maybe I just learned some lessons about how to do it, and my tastes change, because it's been a few years even since I wrote Nihil Reich when I started writing this, so things had changed for me. I think I just got a little bit better, I hope, at getting the songs to flow a little.
In terms of explanation, expectation to discovery, or measuring that expectation, it might have been early on, track 1, track 2, maybe, where I thought I couldn't really pick up on that theme,
right?
Where there was that flow. To be super honest and open about what I experienced in that first song, particularly, it's one of the first things that I thought of is some of the sections transitioning into the other sections were quite really heavily contrasted from each other, almost to the point where it was jarring. Now, jarring is often associated, as a negative thing. It's not necessarily so, right?
Yeah. No, sometimes when it's obviously, hopefully it sounds intentional sometimes,
Yeah.
like you are going for okay, maybe this is the way to say it. When it's meant to flow, it flows, and when it's meant to be jarring, it's jarring.
Yeah,
hopefully the intent has been achieved rather than it's all just meant to flow better.
It will take me another listen at least.
What? That's a cop out. You listen to it now. We're talking about it now.
I know. But we're only measuring the explanation into the expectation into the actual discovery. So that's what we're measuring.
Okay.
And I was like, oh man, that was jarring.
Okay. Well, there are moments though that you could feel it flowing better than perhaps the similar examples
particularly
on Nihil Reich,
particularly later in the record. And if I'm honest, there was times in the record where I got lost. Not because I didn't know where I was. I mean, I got lost in the song. It pulled me right into the thing where I'm not even sitting in this room anymore. It's just I was somewhere floating through space in this song.
I think you need to be able to do that as a listener, if you know what I mean, to be able to get through the music, because I think this is one of those things where if we don't repeat sections, you can't get grounded,
Sure.
You need to be able to just let go and let it pass and not even try.
I had let it go.
Which and I understand. Yeah, I understand that there's certain unfairness with this kind of music where if you're intending to go and listen to it a second time, you might listen to it a first time differently, if you know what I mean.
This has been an interesting experiment because you definitely put me on the spot. There was no way I could do any homework or I had no idea this was happening.
Look, I hope that you're okay with that. I don't think there was any way I could have done this without by being totally open with you and letting you know, but also putting you on the spot.
It wouldn't have worked.
No, exactly. So
I
hope you're okay with being this kind of a guinea pig at the whim of.
No problem, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, sometimes you can take comfort in, the first time experience when you're, surrounded by friends and there's no, attention on any one particular person or anything. Well, that attention would have been turned to you because everyone's, enjoying the thing together for the first time, like a listening party, right?
Yeah.
And whenever something cool comes up, everyone looks at Matt, Well, now I feel like all these cameras pointed at me and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
I've got goosebumps, I've got tears, I've got all sorts of stuff going on and I'm on TV.
Well, look, forgive me, Shilzy.
No, it's totally fine. I love feeling this way about music, right? And I know you know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So look
cool.
on the day when we have a listening party and we're surrounded by those people, you can look at the people now and with this knowing sense of, I've been through what you've been through now. And
the only difference is that it will be my listen number 2.
Yeah, well, that's true.
And I'll be experiencing all of that again with some sharper preconception than I have come into this.
Yeah, well, there you go. If you've got a sharper preconception now, it means that it would be almost impossible for me to prepare you to listen number 1 as it would be as listen number 1 is to prepare you for listen number 2. So what's in the gap? what do you think I could have said maybe, or
We come back to the second, maybe third expectation that you gave me for listen number 1, right? Where you said, let's take all the features, let's call them, of Loom of Time, right? And let's like turn them up, righto. All the black metal gets more black metal, and the doom gets more doom, and the thrash gets more thrash, and the whatever you call that last track gets more whatever that last track is.
Ballad, of course. I mean, it's
Look, ballad might be a stretch, right? You've got a whole like verse of clean singing at the start.
Yeah, so it's a ballad. All right, we'll leave it with that.
Ballad.
It's a ballad. It functions as a ballad. Anyway. Okay, so yes, so the genre is a bit...
Definitely delving deeper into each of those things.
Okay.
Yeah, to the point of extreme.
Yeah, so I mean, you could more easily point to like a whole song and go, oh, that's the...
Yes,
that's
so
thrash song.
As another rule, the songs are unique from each other. They have their own, even though in any particular song itself, it darts around quite a lot.
I mean, we still do Loom of Time stuff, right?
I can appreciate what you're saying where while this song darts around a lot, it's still that song. It's different from this song in its entirety. And it's not like you've got two similar songs that dart around all over the place. They are different. And that's a hard thing to sell, or a hard thing for me to, articulate properly on one listen.
Yeah.
Once I learn,
I mean, one of the things that I was a bit concerned about with this kind of thing is that if you go too varied or your songs are too unique, then they don't sound cohesive. It sounds like
they don't belong on a record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, I mean, was there a sense of that? I mean, let's exclude the ballad for now.
No.
Okay.
No, even the ballad fit with the rest of them. They were all unmistakably Loom of Time songs.
Okay.
And whether or not that is just a familiarity with your voice,
I think
maybe
that probably
like that's a
factor.
grounding factor in bringing it all back to Loom of Time.
It might be the case that if it was a totally different vocalist or whatever,
no, not necessarily. Just to go on that page for a second, because the parts where I recognise Jason as the vocals still sound exactly like Loom of Time.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether or not that's...
Yeah, I was going to say, if it was a totally different vocalist, or even a totally different vocalist on every song, I think you might still have to dig a bit deeper to find the Loom of Time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It wouldn't be as immediately apparent, but
might
it's
be
still there. Right?
Someone who, you would have to be familiar with Nile Rock to tell.
Sure.
Because, you play guitar riffs the same way.
Sure.
Even the drums are similar, and which is strange because... completely different guys, different styles, blah, blah, blah. But there was still a similarity there in the way that was all, put together. Like there was a particular song that made me think that. It's like, oh man, the drums, knowing what I know about the two drummers, it's still Loom of Time drums.
Yeah, it would be interesting if it was The Shoulders of Giants, because that was written in the Steve era of Loom of Time.
That song was so different. And I only picked up on a few parts of that song that I recognised. Both from when I've seen you play it live and from the parts that I did vocals for.
Yes. So yeah, what was it like hearing the bits that you probably? I assume that you haven't heard those parts since you probably recorded them, right?
Correct.
I gave you some vocal guides, right? And
so you gave me
spent
some
a little time memorizing those.
Really, I was going to say loose. They were really well put together guides where you had. Let's say there was a harmony, you did this part, then you did this harmony part, then you did this harmony part.
Yeah.
Then you combined them all.
Yeah.
And then and what we had all that to listen to, click tracks and all.
Yeah, but the point is, I guess we spent it like a half a day just recording those.
A day.
So we spent some time doing it. So they would have been cemented in your brain, I guess, to a point. And now you've heard them in the context of the songs. Did you... I mean, from the snippets and things that you have heard, did you get a different sense for what it might be like compared?
Yeah.
Right.
So, those, like you said, those parts were so ingrained in my brain, like I knew them so well. And then when we recorded them, eventually, like the stuff that Mida had smashed together for us and played back to us through the monitors, and it sounded so massive, like so enormous. And then in the record, like I recognize them, right?
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily super prominent.
Yeah.
Which is cool. They're not designed to be super prominent. Some of them are.
I do remember now that when we listened to them back in the studio, it was like just the gang vocals.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a huge...
And it was huge.
Yeah. But, of course, in the context of putting it in the song, it's like... It's cool to hear them like that. They do sound really great. But if you did that in the song, it would just suck the power out of everything else that's going on.
That's right, yeah.
So it's almost disappointing knowing what they sounded like that, to know that they're like this. But again, it's the songs are like still in the core unit of the band is still, the functional, guitars, bass, drums, and vocals.
Yeah.
There so that those songs could still be performed live and not feel like there's just nothing there.
Sure.
If those gang vocals are gone. So I guess it's important like that. But yes, I do sense that almost. Like you're missing out. Like if you could hear those isolated vocals, man.
They were huge.
They were epic.
And I mean, while they sounded huge at the time, I guess I needed to accept that. There's every chance they might not have even made it to the record,
I suppose so.
Like they have whole deleted scenes in movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Some person might say, I was in such and such movie, but I never made the cut.
Yeah.
It was just, cut to the floor. Yeah, got to those parts and they sounded good. They sounded exactly as they, I guess, were intended to sound. I had a lot of fun doing that, for sure. And it also inspired me to experiment with similar techniques and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Certainly, writing this album with the vocals, I did a lot more with vocal arrangements than I did on Nihilreich. That was just the freedom of creativity, right?
Yep.
I never really considered to do it in Nihilreich. Almost, it was just like I'm just a dude. I yell the lyrics. Okay, song's finished. But in this one, it was like my way of doing it was like if I've written a bunch of lyrics that don't fit properly into normal 4/4 bar iambic pentameter or whatever.
Yep.
Then I can cut them up and I can layer them and I can do other stuff. As long as it's not so divorced from, what's capable of one guy on a stage, then I can still manage it. So obviously it's going to sound different there to how I would perform it by myself. But you get two versions of the song almost.
So on that, let's park that two versions of the song aside for a second, because I imagine you can play a lot of these songs in the Nihilreich style, take it straight to the stage.
Essentially, yeah.
And just do that whole thing. But let's say you have this big grand idea that you're taking this to the stage. So there are some pretty prominent features of, music in there, of musicians that aren't in the band.
Yeah.
And particularly with vocals. I don't know what it is about like a live setting, the punters or, whatever expectations that you have at a live show. It's totally okay to put saxophone in a backing track to come out the PA, right? But is it okay to put Sammy in the backing track?
Now remember, when I wrote that song, it was me singing vocals. I sang those vocals.
Yep.
And that's probably what I'll do. Look, if any of my guest musicians are at a show and they're pull
more than welcome
the jazz flute out of the and they're ready to go, then we will make it work.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, there was a version of all these songs that I demoed, that I made, where I was that and in some cases there were guitar solos where there were saxophone solos,
right,
written and played, and I had to,
so where there's those really lush sax, you can play that on guitar when you're on the stage.
Yeah, could.
Unbelievable.
Again, well, in most cases, it wasn't the same thing being played. It was a guitar solo written for that part.
Sure.
That I just went, no, we've got a saxophonist now. Let's delete that.
Let's do that.
And put a saxophonist in there. And that's the result, right? So that was, that's the decision. But yes, I think if none of that stuff had been in there, I think I would hope that it's still a solid album because you've still got the song structures and melodies and all this stuff. But that stuff that you're talking about is more like sonically interesting. But musically, it could be done on another instrument, and the notes would be the same, right? So those things are not about musical interest in that sense. They're about sonic interest.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So yes, I think the album is going to be more sonically interesting than the live show. But what album can you say is not like that? Okay, I think that's always going to be the case unless you're going for that really, really live feel. So I think if I could go back and do Nihilreich again in this style and put some organs over the top of the doom parts and have sax guys playing in the guitar solos and so on, and you'd be like, how could this ever be any other way, right? But the Nihilreich you know now is the way it is without that stuff. I think it's kind of a similar idea.
Well, I mean, in your 20 or 30 year anniversary of Nihilreich, then you can re-release it with all that jazz crap in it as well.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, other people do it. They reimagine their albums and
yeah,
add a bunch of bongos and saxophones.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of bongos, I don't think there are any bongos in this one, but there was a drum arrangement that was by Adam. He arranged those drums, but he didn't arrange them for those instruments. Right? He arranged them, and then I just MIDI-fied them over into something else.
Right.
So I guess there was more than one guest on that song because Adam, let's say, wrote the percussion parts.
Yep.
Sammy was singing and so on and so on. So
when I hear a record for the first time that I know is going to be good, but I don't really have, the only expectation that I have is like, okay, I'm familiar with this band.
Yeah.
And I know that it's going to be good, right? And then sometimes you're surprised. I remember when I listened to Rivers of Nile's latest work, The Work.
The Work, yeah.
It didn't really grab me first listen. Mm-hmm. I thought, what have they done? This is a weird direction that they've taken. It's quite different, right? Like overly theatrical compared to the previous, Owls, which is an incredible record.
Sure.
And super familiar with that record. And I just thought, it's so different. Like I can't get it. And it took me a few listens until I decided for myself to ignore the fact of like what Owls is. Like that's irrelevant now. Put that aside.
Yeah.
Listen to this thing for what it is.
Yeah.
And then something just clicked for me and I was like, this is the best music. Yeah, so good.
I can think of a bunch of times where I've listened to something first time and been like, it's not for me, or it's missing the thing that I liked about their previous music. Yeah. It's missing the thing that I liked about them.
Yep.
But then I realized that
it's not that.
Oh no, it's not that.
Yeah.
They're going for something else.
Yeah.
And they got it.
And they did it.
They got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then another example of like what I've experienced here tonight. So I got really familiar with White Ward's last album.
Yep.
And then they just released their new album, False Light.
Yep.
And while it is...
Which I only recently listened to as well, yeah.
So it's unmistakably White Ward, right? But nonetheless, even though I fully know what to expect, when I sit and listen to it, it just reduces me to like a puddle, like every time.
Yeah.
Especially like on the first listen. Well, the first listen where you're really paying attention. Mm-hmm. Maybe like when you have the first listen and it might have been a wasted experience where I was driving or doing something else where I was distracted and you can't really get into it.
That's another reason I don't want people to get my album before it's time,
So whenever you get to listen to something like that when you can pay attention, like it really drives home. And that's what's just happened to me, like I can't wait to listen to it again.
All right. So, okay, here comes the test then. For the people listening, all right, they haven't heard it yet as at the time of this release of this video, okay? Now, they've heard my description of what I think the album is doing differently. If you had to tell them with a sufficient manner that they could understand what it is you've just heard, or let's make it the E question easier. Let's say they want to know, how is it different from Nihilreich? Would you add something to what I've said, or how would you put it? If is there any pointers you could give to them that would help them better anticipate what they're going to hear,
better prepare for what they're going to experience,
so that they enjoy it, so that they understand it, or maybe, perhaps you didn't enjoy it or understand it, and you can't help them in that way. But just to be prepared.
So, I would say that it is still unmistakably Loom of Time. It hasn't changed so drastically that you don't recognize who they are anymore.
Okay.
However, it has pushed envelopes. It's very avant-garde compared to Nihilreich. There's a lot going on.
You think avant-garde isn't misleading? Do you think that's appropriate? Would you say do you say the Loom of Time is an avant-garde metal band now?
Yes.
Oh no.
Like if that's a subgenre of its own, like that's just a way to, I guess all subgenres are just a way to describe what it sounds like, right? That's fairly vague though. That's a
at the very least it has some okay.
If you were going to be progressive in the sound that you were looking for, I'll tell you what, progress is what you've achieved.
Yeah, there are elements here that weren't on Nihilreich.
Absolutely.
All right, how's this?
Okay.
Then? How's this? Is there anything that I said before you listening to it that misled you? That you now think, I didn't get that sense. He worded it wrong, or he's too close to the project. He didn't know what he's talking about.
So that point that I made right back at the start when we just finished about the flow.
Okay.
But that kind of only got me at the front half of the record.
Okay, yeah.
Until I got distracted by another, feature that sort of overtook my attention, and I'd thrown that idea out the window. Like next,
So that's
all right. That's the only part where I not disagree, but to your point where you said you had this idea about it, but you might be too close to it to know. And if you put that idea in my head as an expectation, it didn't really work.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
For me.
So for me, I when I think about it, I think of specific moments on the album where I think it flows better than anything did on Nihilreich. But now you do put it in perspective for me, because there are plenty of places where it wildly changes or goes quiet and then smashes you with something, and is very, very jarring.
So going quiet and smashing back into something, that's not necessarily a feature that's jarring. It's when there's like a wild stylistic change in the middle. Okay. Like having a quiet part then going into like blast beats, like that's just a thing that metal does, right? That's not that uncommon. While it might be jarring by definition, that's not what I meant.
Right. Okay.
So in terms of like, here's this style of music, and then it's like, whoa, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing this part now.
Okay, but I mean, help me understand here. Was that not something that Nihilreich did in its day, in its time?
Well, I guess not as jarring. Like it was like, you might say like, okay, we've got like tremolo and blast beats, and then we're going into like one of Steve's or your doom parts that Steve turned into a breakdown. And it's still just like boom, meat, potatoes, metal, bang your head.
Okay.
Great stuff. There is...
So the gaps between the styles, there's
larger
gaps
gaps between the styles.
Okay.
And it's got to do with that other point that you made where you take these certain styles that Loom of Time has done, and goes deeper into those rabbit holes. That's the difference, I think. It hasn't like, the rabbit's so far down the hole, and then the rabbit hasn't climbed back out of the hole. The rabbit's just all of a sudden in the sky again. Like, what? How did that happen?
Yeah. Okay. So it's like this part of black metal and this part of doom are quite close to each other, but this part of black metal and this part of doom, they're further apart. And so for me, it's like, well, on Nihilreich, we went from black metal to doom, and on Grand Force of Caress, we went from black metal to doom. But because they're deeper,
not the same thing.
They're deeper. They're actually further apart. Maybe it's almost like a genre wheel, more like. Yeah. And so
we've gone not from here to the next sort of quadrant. We've gone from here to over there.
Yeah, or Nihil Reich was like you might go from one quadrant to the next. But if you go further out from that quadrant, you're actually further apart now.
That being said, like, don't be hard on yourself. This was, like I said, very early on in the album, and I had this idea in my head that we're going to be like smooth flow, and then it was just like, whoa, that's not what I expected.
Maybe it's almost like this is what Nihil Reich sounded like in my head, and I never realized it in that fashion. So to me, it's been like that all along.
Yep.
But now with Nihil Reich as the expectation, as the
this would be an interesting experiment for someone that's never heard Nihil Reich before, because I have listened to it so many times that all of those transitions that might seem jarring to the first time listener, not jarring to me at all, because I know exactly what's happening. Whereas this time, first time listen, I never knew what was going to happen next, and it happened, and I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Whereas on the 10th listen, I will know.
Yeah.
And it might be exactly how you're explaining it.
In a sense, it's like some of the things that I think people might have problems with Nihil Reich, the people that it just wasn't for, it's probably worse here, right? It's probably like if you don't like the atypical nature of the way we deal with things, it's probably accentuated here because
I think so.
Yeah,
that will definitely be a theme in how this is received. And we touched on it there, last season, talking about what kind of fans you're gonna, attract, retain, alienate. Those people might get up and walk away.
Yeah,
whatever, man.
Like one thing I think about is I think we sort of from your typical song structure and metal and so on, Nihil Reich was a step away, by throwing away verses and choruses. And I think this one's probably even a larger step away. It's like there's even less sense of verse and chorus in this one, right? I mean, I can't think of any choruses really. I don't think any of the stuff that we wrote was necessarily less grand or catchy as a chorus might be, but they don't. There's even less of a thing that might function as a chorus.
Yeah.
So I think for the people who like verses and choruses, and just to, as a way to understand a song, that yes, this is worse, right?
Yeah. So as advice to another first-time listener, like if you're into verse chorus, keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get it.
No. I think it is very important with this kind of music to be able to just let go, have the music's going to go places. You're not required to, chunk it into concrete pieces and understand, when that part's going to come around again. I think, it might be that this kind of music takes a certain kind of mindset to listen to be able to appreciate properly, maybe, which it probably would alienate people, and that's fine because it's part of the project. It's what we're doing.
That's right? People are lazy too. Like they don't want to have to work for it to try and understand something. Like if they don't get it and to get it, you've got to try to get it. And they might not be interested.
Yeah.
I don't care.
No, and that's part of probably who I am. I would rather take one work and dive into it very deeply than to listen to 10 works superficially, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's just, the way I prefer to do it.
You don't have to pander to anyone.
And so I think that probably comes out in the music. I think if you can just let it go and wash it over you, I don't think it's demanding. I don't think there's it's not like a lot of bands where you have to do math to understand what's going on, right?
Yeah.
It's still I said that it was more musical, right? That it had that musical sense to it. It's more like chords and melodies and things rather than a riff salad. I mean, did that ring true to you, do you think? I mean,
not necessarily, not that I picked up on, but not to the contrary either. Like I said, I did get lost in it and got lost in some of the groove, lost in some of the long spacey bits, so I hadn't really even given that a thought. Okay. It must have worked, right?
So I mean, that first song was meant to be like the black metal song, right?
Oh man, it was like you press play and it was like.
So I mean, like all of Nihil Reich, it was just an attempt to write a black metal song.
Yep.
But in that one, I felt maybe I had gone black metal enough. So after that, I went into greener pastures.
All
or something.
sorts of stuff. Yeah.
That first song, it's like black metal for like a minute, and then it's just drops out, and there's like a spacier section with some sweet leads, and then back into death metal. But you know what? I think if you listen to that again, you'll hear the lead guitar come from the black metal section, go over the doom section,
like I said,
into the next. I reckon it really flows. I reckon it flows better than anything I wrote on Nihil Reich.
I don't doubt it.
But yeah, I know what you're saying now, because the let's say it's black metal bookends to spacey atmospheric doom or whatever, and so it's very jarring in those transitions. But I can also tell you, I think if you would hear it again and you would hear that lead guitar play through and transition between them, you'd be like, that flows better than anything on Nihil Reich.
Like I said, I'm really looking forward to second listen and getting to know everything.
Yeah, but I guess it's interesting that we're talking about one section that I felt flowed really well and you felt was really jarring.
So what I'm interested to know for experience, for experiment's sake, this has been an experiment on my reaction to your advice.
Yeah.
I guess, or how to measure that against my first listen experience.
Yeah.
What did you expect my feedback to be? Did you come into this with no expectations?
I write in a certain way, and I wrote. There were lots of commonalities between the way I wrote for Nihil Reich and the way I wrote for Grand Force Crass. I imagined that it's cohesive as a 2-album cycle, whatever.
Right.
That it felt very Loom of Timey. Mm-hmm. But I was concerned that because it has been so long since I finished writing Nihil Reich to writing this one, that it would have been so different that you would have been like, wow, nothing that I thought was Loom of Time about Nihil Reich is present on this album. I was afraid that might be the case.
Your evolution as a musician in that time that had passed.
Yeah, I thought maybe, like if you listen to Nihil Reich and you just hear all those riffs and you go, wow, those are all Loom of Time riffs. They're such a riff band, cool. And then you got to this one and then it's just, it's chords and the lead parts. They don't sound just like random noodling. It's, there's a melody there, something,
Make no mistake, all of that stuff in this record tonight now is Loom of Time stuff.
Yeah, okay.
You haven't lost that.
All right. Okay.
No way.
All right. See, I guess I couldn't really tell. I don't know. I couldn't really tell being this close to the project.
Yeah.
Whether it was... Okay, and I guess here's another thing. People, when they listen to music, two people can listen and they can pick up on different things.
That's
and
right.
Appreciate different things about that music. So I guess I wanted to see if the things that you liked or understood about Nihil Reich...
Yep.
Are they still present?
They are, because I had thought about that before we even, while we were listening, I had thought about what I recognised about the Loom of Time music and thought about the vocals and that sort of stuff. And I thought to myself, if you took the vocals away and listened to what was left, it's still Loom of Time.
And certainly, again, like I said, by the time I got to track 8, I was like, I need to write a typical Loom of Time song.
Yeah.
So I had a sense for maybe I've gone too far off the rails or whatever. And, maybe I have. But, yeah.
Pulled it right back onto the rails with track 8. And then track 9, it's like, well, the rails just stopped.
Okay, that doesn't count, right? Like the ballad at the end of Nihil Reich was... that felt that last ballad song on what we've just listened to was too far off the track. Or not, but
I don't think so.
Because there's some very obvious differences about the entirety of it compared to the other music. But basically, it was like I let the feel of the lyrics guide what I felt like, and I just was inspired to do that kind of thing, so I did. Right? I guess it still came from the same creative place as any of the rest of the album, but. Because of stylistic differences, I suppose you could say, it does sound different.
I had during that listen, I can't remember how far into the record we were, but I remember listening to certain parts of certain songs thinking to myself, it's too early to tell and it's naive to say, but this is my favourite song. And then I had that thought 3 separate times, where I thought, I know I said that other song was my favourite song, but I'm definitely going to remember this part, like this part. This is my jam. This is my favourite thing. And then that's just thinking about it like logically, rationally, knowing what I like. And then it was later, and I think it was on the track 8, the second saxophone solo where it was like just saxophone. And it like rocked me to the point where I'd stopped thinking about like what I liked and what was, you know, favorite. I was kind of lost for words, I think, and I just melted into a puddle.
Yes, sax has that effect, Peter, doesn't it? You know, and it's just the story there. I mean, that was never meant to be a sax solo. I never planned it to be a sax solo.
I'm so glad you did.
It had a guitar solo in it, and for logistical reasons, I pivoted at the last moment. It was during tracking. We got messages about a saxophonist being able to do this stuff, and I was like, let's do it, punch it in. So there was some turbulence in getting this made, but I'm happy with the way a lot of it.
Unbelievable. And then I had the similar thing again in the last track, just the way it made me feel, where I just thought to myself, this is so amazing. Like, I don't quite understand what I'm experiencing right now, but it's taken me to a whole other place.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, overall, I guess it's a longer album than I Heal Right by about 15 minutes or something. You've got a flow from first track, which is meant to be, you know, your kick-off track, and then the last track, which is meant to let you sort of feel, bring you back down.
Strong closer.
And let you feel, you know, again, the key word that I'm pretty sure I said in season 1 was resonance for that last moment. You know, supposed to feel a resonating feeling.
Well, I felt
a hum, you know, that kind
felt that the listening party first time through Nile Reich all those years ago.
So I guess you can see that the functions of the songs and
100%,
if you know what I mean.
That aim, you nailed it. You know, the same.
Okay. And yeah, one thing I was a little concerned about is that this, you know, it's interesting. You know, the first track is, I think, the longest one, and it's the probably most unrelentingly dark and battering track. It's almost like the album is gatekeeping itself by turning everyone off at the very beginning by having a long, dark, oppressing song right up front. I guess you're lucky that I was able to force you to go on to all the other songs as well, because you know that first track might have turned off enough people that they never get to track 2. I don't know. I hope that in the context of the whole album, it's still worth having songs like that. It's just it's almost like maybe it's all downhill after that, if you know what I mean. But
it's interesting, you know, because you'd expect a technique that a person putting an album together, or, you know, ordering the tracks, is going to put on an album. Put on a song as track 1 that's going to, you know, entice the listener to keep going. You know, oh man, track 1 was awesome. What's track 2? Oh, it's awesome too. Let's keep going. Whereas you've put like you said, like a gate or an obstacle at the start. It's a technique they use on, going a bit off topic here, but like on a mountain bike trail.
Oh, okay.
At the very start of a trail, if you put a feature in there that's more difficult to ride than the rest of the track. So if you can't ride that first bit, like, turn around.
Yeah.
Because this is setting the tone, you know.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what you've done with that first song. Or, you know, according to your explanation, that, you know, if you can't hack this part, then turn around.
Yeah, I guess if it's
put Slayer back on.
Yeah, if you can get through that first one, I think the other ones are all. I think probably the other ones are perhaps more varied and weird, and there's plenty of extra weirdness as you go along and so on. Yeah, it is a bit gatekeepy, but I'm still following my method of writing the songs sequentially, right? So that's the first song I wrote, right? I'm just like, all right, I've finished Nah Right, let's write a black metal song. There we go. And then we just went on from there, except for one track in the very middle, Shoulders of Giants, which was from the previous one. The reason I stuck that in the middle of the album is because it was meant to be in the middle of I wrote it in the middle of the last one. So I just felt it was a nice, not a rest stop, but it's a song that just kind of continues the pace, as it were.
The way that you've arranged it now fits perfect in this record.
Okay.
It belongs. If you had it arranged the way it is now and put it in Nile Reich, it wouldn't have fit. It would have been too weird.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Right.
But like you said, it's evolved over those years, and the way that I've seen you play it live before, it fits in Nile Reich back then.
Yeah. Yep.
In the way that you could do, and you can still play it live like that. I mean, I'm sure you will, because there'll be different arrangements for all these songs when you take them to the stage too.
Sure.
It'd be interesting to see, like, if you could release a B-side of all these songs in the Nile Reich style or the live show style.
Well, I actually have live arrangements of them for the sake of teaching the other guys.
Cool, yeah.
So those things exist, but maybe I'll do it on stream one time or something.
Yeah, you could do it later on, online only or vinyl only, whatever you want to do, and people take it on and go, you know what, I like this one better. It's an interesting thing, you've got that ammo, you've got that up your sleeve. You can do whatever you want. People are going to love it. People are going to love this.
Well, some people, yeah. I think I think some people will love it.
Yeah.
I think that I guess my goal was never really be the most popular metal artist. It's always been like, I know that there are people that will like this kind of thing. You just need to get their ears around it, right? We need to find those people. If there's some people along the way that hear it, it gets in their ears, but they don't like it, it's not for them. I'm sorry to you guys, all right? I'm sorry. It was never meant to go in your ears, but sometimes you're the collateral damage for Loom of Time going on its way to on its way to where it's meant to go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I like it.
Okay. Oh,
was I allowed to say that?
No. That's we'll cut
that
out. We've got a music video set up for one of the songs.
Yes.
So that's the next time you'll hear one of these tracks. It'll be a couple of weeks probably. So hopefully maybe your brain is reset some things about, and maybe you can give us a little bit of feedback on that one as well when you hear it again. But look, I gotta say, thanks for being a sport, Shieldsy. Like I pulled a fast one on you these last 6 years or whatever, making you wait, and then for the sake of getting this kind of feedback. But I did this because I value your opinion.
Nice.
And I also value how open you are to these kind of crazy shenanigans here.
Yeah. There you go. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
It's been an experience.
So outside of that, by the time you guys are hearing this, I think maybe the album will be out in a couple of days. If the label does all the things that they say.
It'll be out on Friday.
Yeah, it'll be out on Friday. Until then, we've got Doesn't Make Sense, right? Until from now when I'm recording this, there's more stuff to come. But for you, you've already seen it. So I hope you enjoyed the stuff that you've seen so far, all the other podcast episodes that we've done, and the music video and so on. And we'll be back with more podcast content next week.
See you next week.
Until then, thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.